All right, hello everyone. We are back for some Friday night Trophy Golds. This is session 3 of our Trophy Gold and Mörk Borg playthrough inspired by the Devil's Tome adventure from Mörk Borg. As always, this game was set up and planned through Gauntlet RPG. Gauntlet RPG is a community of gamers who are interested in story games, OSR games, experimental games, indie games, even traditional games. We like to play a large variety of things. We like to talk about games, and Gauntlet RPG also publishes a couple of different publications. So if you're interested in getting is it monthly? I think it's a monthly zine of gaming content that includes indie games and some extra things. You can support Gauntlet RPG, and then you can also back at a level that gets you priority RSVP for the gaming calendar. So do a search for Gauntlet RPG if that interests you. Okay, let's do a quick round of introductions. Go ahead and since we've kind of had a shifting cast of characters, let's introduce yourself and your pronouns, please, and then also introduce your character and their pronouns and a brief description of them if you'd like to include that. I'll start. My name is John. I use he, him pronouns. I've been gaming with the Gauntlet for just over a year and have been really enjoying running this Trophy Gold series and have really liked where we've ended up in terms of the incursion so far, and we'll do a recap of that in just a moment. Joel, would you go next, please?
Hi, everyone. My name is Joe. I use he, him pronouns. I've been sort of in and out into the Gauntlet for a while. I discovered it years ago when I was trying to figure out how to run a game called City of Mist. And then I fell into the Gauntlet rabbit hole and I probably could get out if I wanted to, but I don't want to. It's so much fun. And I am playing Randon. Randon, I mentioned when I first started playing him, Randon, he, him, is sort of a reskinning of one of my early D&D characters. Randon is a beast bitten, which is their name for a lycanthrope. He is a werebear. He is a big bear of a man. But he's a cured beast bitten, so he has the ability to sort of transform different parts of him, depending on what he needs. And his main goal right now is to find enough coin to free his brother from the druids. The druids are the people who cure beast bitten, but they don't do it for free.
Very excellent. We are very happy to have Brandon back. Joel, would you go next, please?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Joel, he, him pronouns. I've been playing with the Gauntlet, I think under a year. I'd kind of done the whole, I was subscribed for a while and then just lurked from the shadows for a while and then just started playing a little more recently. And I will be playing Cashin, who also uses he, him pronouns. Cashin currently works as a spy, so kind of knows his way around keeping silent, poisons, impersonating other people. But his background is as a fugitive servant, where he was a servant to the Chancellor of Yogyakarta Lyceum, which we had kind of learned in the first session was a mage's university with a lot of magic and secrets and potentially dangerous professors that work there. One who is potentially entombed in the place that we're at, and that is Cashin.
Very good. And Chris, would you round it out for us, please?
Hello. I'm Chris. Use he, him pronouns. And in this game, I am playing Gordred, who uses he, they pronouns. Gordred is a kind of burly type. Their occupation is the Ox, and their background is a heretical inquisitor. And they tend to use force and direct action to get things done. And right now, Gordred is trying to find the thing that their betrothed craves. And might have a lead, which might be dangerous. So we'll see where that goes.
All right, and so I'm just going to do kind of a full summary because that way everyone can be on the same page. So the entire group has been sent here to retrieve the eyes of Saint Largoth. You've all been told you're going to be paid 1 gold each for completing this. And you have found yourself at this tomb in Graventosk. Initially, the group did a lot of exploration in the top. That led them to this narrow stone bridge over a large pit to hell with a large bronze door, which last session the group did open via the help of some their sorceress Rose and an intrepid colony of rats. Behind it, they found one of the fish people demons, as the old man had referred to them, who explained that their kind had locked them in here, and that they've been under some sort of spell. They've been acting at the lead of something else that's within this tomb. And so the group set to figuring out how to delve deeper into the tomb and get past that pollen that was clogging the stairway. Gordred came up with a very explosive solution via tossing a torch down the stairwell that ended up blasting them over the side of the pit and ending up hanging near this opening where that swarm of flaming bats had come from. So Gordred has climbed through that opening, which is like it looks like a collapsed doorway leading out from this room. And Gordred found himself in this very sort of fancy burial room with a sarcophagi in the center, clay pots surrounding the wall with plants that had been choked to death by this vine growing around them, this vine that had the angel faces on it. And just as Gordred came in, they see the lid of the sarcophagi being pushed and inched off of its base. Gordred rushed forward, pushed the lid back over it, though caught a glimpse of the creature within. It's a woman in a gown wearing a rose thorn crown and who has roses for eyes. And so Gordred is currently, I think, sitting on top of the lid is what I have pictured in my mind, trying to keep this thing locked away for a bit. Meanwhile, the rest of the group, after having hid outside to protect themselves from the explosion, came back in, came down the stairwell, which is no longer full of pollen, but instead is full of this screaming ash from the burnt up pollen, and reached the mid landing where they found 3 different goblins arguing over who would take a sword and go attack the creature in the room beside them, the room that you all can tell is most likely where Gordred climbed into. And just as Rose was evaluating the sword they were looking at and looking to see if it was anything special, there was a wet footstep that appeared from behind you. You heard it slap against the stone floor, and you turn and you see another of these fish people has ascended from the floor below and is looking at you with these large eyes. Their skin is dripping water. They've clearly just come out of some sort of water body that's down below. And their lips curl back and a sneer. So I think I'll start with Randon and Cassian. What do you do?
So to clarify, this is, actually a quick question. So what happened to the fish person that we rescued?
We actually didn't go into detail about that, and I realized that after last game. They were left up above. Basically, they did ask that you deal with this force. I believe they told the group that it was a woman. I think they described it as a woman, that you deal with this woman who has, put the rest of their people under a spell. I don't think they've come with you, but they did give they handed a treasure over. I think they handed it to Rose.
Nice.
So maybe Cassian has it. I don't remember. It was that swim bladder. Because I remember Cassian was using that to kind of blow some pollen around initially. I also should mention, so we're in a different set than what you were last in, Joe. So this is, we learned what stole the eyes, which was the fish people, but at the direction of this woman.
Right.
So now the set that we're in, the set goal is to discover the path to the corrupting plant.
Okay. Discover the path to the corrupting plant.
Correct.
All right. So my first thing is like I step between Cassian and this new fish person, and I pop out the bear paws, and I stand there. Cassian's going to do the talking, but I'm going to do the menacing.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's the eyes turn to you, Cassian. What do you say?
Yeah, and Cassian just kind of like shrinks behind Randon and just like pokes above him from like safe cover behind his meat shield, and says, because this isn't in the room with Gordred, right? We're like outside of that room.
Correct. There's the stairway down. You've veered to the left to a central chamber, which you can see has one entrance into a further room towards that pit, based on your spatial reasoning. There is another doorway in this room, though it's a smaller one, and it looks like it's probably some sort of like ramshackle home. Maybe, someone's living in there from this area.
Okay. Yeah, Cassian will say, we're just looking for a friend here. There's no reason for any altercations to take place or any unnecessary blood to be spilled, and kind of like pointed the claws that Randon had popped out, and then looks back at the fish person.
Okay. I think because their temperament is already hostile, I think this is a risk move.
Yeah.
So let's pull up the risk goals. My PDF notes, come on. Okay, so when you attempt a risky task, say what you hope will happen and ask the GM and other players what could possibly go wrong. So what do you hope will happen in this circumstance?
I'm hoping that, this isn't one of the fish people that's under a spell, and it'll basically just leave us to go back to its home or back to whatever it was doing previously.
Okay. And now we say what could possibly go wrong. I'll start with the obvious. It attacks. Any other ideas?
It could call more of its friends.
It could trigger something with the vines.
Yeah.
There could be something around that.
Yeah.
We don't really know much about them.
Very true. Okay, so you start with no dice for a risk roll. You can get 1 light die if the task is something you were skilled at because of your occupation, background, or training, or because you were taking advantage of a piece of equipment or the environment. So do you have any skills, equipment, environmental uses that play in here?
I mean, I have impersonation as a spy. Otherwise, because did you say that like combat equipment can be used? It just puts it at risk?
Yes, so I think that's a correction from last time I played with you, Joe. I did some more reading of the rules. I don't see any reason we can't use combat equipment. I think it just, kind of puts it on the table as potentially a thing that, can be brought into play in terms of what goes wrong and such.
Okay. Because one of my armors that I have down is unassuming nature. I'm just kind of like meek and non-threatening. So maybe using that as a like, we're not worth the fight, like just a frail little guy, and this is just a weird werewolf or werebear, like just keep moving along.
Okay, I like that kind of a almost like a we just look like we're strange to you. You don't need to attack us, sort of deal. I like that. Okay, so that's 1 light die, and you can get a 2nd light die for accepting a devil's bargain from another player or the GM. So any devil's bargains anyone can think of? I have one. The voice returns and will make you an offer.
Okay.
Any other ideas for devil's bargains? No? Okay, well, you've got 1 on the table.
Okay, I will take it for that extra die.
Okay. And you can add a dark die from the start if you'd like, if you're willing to risk your mind or body, or you can add this later on if you don't like the result of your first roll. So do you want to start with 1 or add it later?
I will add it later, depending on how poorly I do.
Fair enough. So you're rolling 2 light dice
Okay.
to start.
5 and a 3.
5 and a 3. So you succeed, but there's some kind of complication. The GM describes the complication, then you describe how you succeed. Let's see. I think what happens is you're going to be able to talk down this creature for the time being. But while you're busy persuading them, what you don't see are the vines closing off the entryway between you and the room that Gordred is in. We see these vines just snaking their way over the doorway, building up this thick, fibrous plant barrier. So go ahead and describe how you succeed.
I think Cashin uses his unassuming nature and basically goes into this long rambling spiel about how, they just came down here to pay their respects, and then they got lost. They were going down some stairs, they took a left, maybe they should have taken a right, and is just the quintessential like bumbling tourist who's like asking for directions and just talking until the fish person kind of like gets annoyed with him and tries to like awkwardly make an exit.
I think you eventually Yeah, as you're bumbling along, the creature hisses out at you. You are no threat to her. I do not know why I was worried. She will have her way with you. And it turns to head back down the stairs as you hear its wet footsteps slapping on the steps, descending back down into the darkness. And then just after this, you hear that voice again in your head. And this time, the voice, it's this deep, almost baritone voice. But you can hear now that it's got a feminine edge to it. It's somewhat sultry as it speaks to you and says, "You would be a worthy servant of mine. If you would swear yourself to me, then I may find the compassion to spare your friend."
I mean, my friends or the people I, hang out with tend to be able to take care of themselves, and I've done the servant thing once already. I have no interest in going back to that.
You were sure then I could teach you such wonderful things. And I think at that point, she also reveals another glimpse to you, another brief flash of something stolen from Cassian by the Lyceum. What does Cassian see in that moment?
I think Cassian, like from what they remember, they were always a servant of like one of the higher ups at the Lyceum, and his early memories are all like getting coffee, collecting scrolls, cleaning up after people, very toiling stuff. And then he has this vision of basically him in like star pupil gear, maybe like a badge kind of signifying that he's like head student type. And he's just very like standing up straight, which he normally doesn't do, very proud of himself, very like expressive and stuff. And it's just that like small, quick glimpse.
Does this change Cassian's thoughts at all?
I don't think it changes what he tells the voice, but I think he is definitely going to try and like figure out, like he's a lot more interested in finding out the source of this voice now. He's not just in it for the money.
Fair enough. And I think it's about that time that you catch the glimpse now of the vines fully growing over this doorway to the next room. The goblins begin to squeal and squeak as they point to the door and say, the door it's closed. She's locked herself in there. Gordred, from the other side, you could see flickers of the torchlight coming in. And one by one, the tendrils have grown over and now extinguished that light coming in. The only bit of light you have is this red, eerie reflection coming up from the pit just outside this crumbled entranceway on the other side that you climbed through. You're sitting on top of this lid, but you can feel it. You can feel a great strength beneath it pushing. You know it's only a matter of time before they are able to push their way out. What do you do?
think like as the light is dimming, Gordred is kind of glancing around the room and trying to buy time, trying to keep the sarcophagus closed long enough to, like, I think, like, did Gordred hear, off in the distance, this conversation that was happening, the goblins yelling about the vines, or is it too far?
No, I think that's definitely within earshot. You're able to catch glimpses of it.
So I think if I can make out that it's them, I think at this point I like shout to them. I'm just like, Cassian, Brandon, there's something in here and I'm trying to keep it sealed. Help would be appreciated. And like the little bits of it that they get through the new vine door. But I think in the moment now that it's starting to get dark, I try to grab like one of these big urns, something that's heavier than me.
Yeah.
To like set on top of the sarcophagus in my place, or in addition to me.
Yeah, I think this is a hunt roll, right? I think you're asking questions about the environment around you, looking for things to obstruct and keep this sarcophagus closed.
Sure.
So let's see. So say how you're exploring your environment, then gather 6-sided dice. So it sounds like Gordred is looking around the room for anything that may be of use in terms of keeping this closed.
Would this be a risk roll with the urns, since we already established the urns in the environment? Or I'm happy to do a hunt roll if we want to just like discover something in the room that will help me first.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think this is a risk roll because failure, potentially has a.
Yeah. It's more like, does this thing escape?
Yeah.
Or not, and I'm using the existing environment.
Yeah, let's do that then.
Okay.
Okay, so say what you hope will happen. I think I'll let you go ahead and frame it.
I hope that I will be able to trap this thing in for long enough for my friends to get in here.
Yep.
That's kind of the state.
And then what could possibly go wrong? Let's see, what could go wrong?
The obvious is that it just gets out as I'm like even attempting to lift up one of these urns.
Right, it just doesn't work. I'll also say that in disturbing the environment, you reveal a secondary threat.
I don't know if this is something that's an addition or just a bad thing that can happen, but the vines continue to choke out all the light and the room is cast in complete darkness.
Yeah, that's a good one. Any other ideas?
I will say in kind of like the woman inside trying to fight her way out, she reaches out and like gouges your breastplate that you're wearing, damaging it.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right, so you get 1 light die for using a skill, background, training, or the environment. It sounds like you're definitely using the environment, right? It sounds like Gorge is essentially just pile everything on. Yeah. Put as much weight on you as you can.
Things first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're definitely getting that first light die. And you can get a 2nd light die for taking a devil's bargain. Let's see. Anyone have any devil's bargains to offer?
I don't know if this counts as a devil's bargain or not, but as you're piling things on top, you notice something that would be a shiny treasure, but you now can't take it, because if you take it, everything else will fall off.
I will say, as you're trying to like keep everything on, you notice something either in the room or maybe that the person is wearing from your background as an inquisitor. Maybe like the case that got away for you that still haunts you.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a devil's bargain to offer in this circumstance. So I think you've got those two to go with.
I like the introduction in the fiction of the complication of this also being connected to my Inquisitor past, because that puts a really fun spin on there's a treasure in there that I think I want for my drive, but then that's also actually, I realize it's connected to my past.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Kind of rad. So I'll go for that.
Okay, and would you like to add a dark die to start? Are you willing to risk your mind and body?
Yeah. I think I'm alone in the dark. So.
Fair enough. So you're rolling 2 light dice and a dark die?
Right. That is 2 on the dark die, 3 and a 4 on the light dice.
Okay. So ruin does not go up. At the moment, you succeed, but there's some kind of complication. And I believe you get to know the complication before you choose whether or not to reroll. So let's see. The complication in this case. I think in this case, let's say that the complication is that it takes everything you've got to put this stuff on top of the sarcophagi, including yourself, and so you're not going to be able to help break through the vines or anything like that. So you now have the option of you can accept that, or if you would like, you can possibly re-roll.
I'll take that for now.
Okay.
That puts me in a stable situation. Not ideal, but stable, and I can always choose to run or do something else later.
Right. And so the introduction of the Devil's Bargain. So let me ask, from your time as an Inquisitor, what was, how to frame it? What was the cause that you were an Inquisitor for? Let's start with that question.
I think it was like a arm of the state. So it was very much a kind of like Spanish Inquisition, kind of a little bit fascist, a little bit oppress dissent kind of thing.
And what is an item that the state highly values its return of? Let's say, so I think in this moment, as you are piling things on to here, you go to move one of these large urns, and you see stuck behind it, stashed away, this item of great wealth to the state that has been hidden away, that you as an inquisitor would have been on the lookout for. What do you see?
Like something like the pot I grab has these engraved bones in it that I recognize are a relic. They're like the bones of a saint that had been stolen, and I think the government didn't want it known that they were stolen, and didn't really want people to know that they existed.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, go ahead, and that's the complication. We've got kind of like how the Inquisitor part emerges. So go ahead and tell us, like, what's it look like as Gordred is piling all this stuff onto the sarcophagi?
I'm picturing these urns as like almost as tall as I am. These like big, heavy ceramic urns, and to get one of them off the ground, haul it over, Gordred is just going essentially like full strongman mode here as the light fades, just like gets down as like low on it as they can get, and just like heaves it up onto their like over their stomach, like the strongman doing the giant boulder lift, and then is just like lifting and like setting it down super heavy on top of the sarcophagus, and it just makes this loud like ceramic on stone thud. And then like you see the lid kind of still shift a little bit, and Gordred is just like, fuck, and just clambers on and is like planted down back on the sarcophagus lid again.
Yeah, and there is this heavy banging from underneath it, and the urns shift just slightly and rattle. And meanwhile,
you can't get out yet.
You can still hear the screaming of the ash from the pollen that has fallen on the ground around you. Back on the other side, Brandon and Cassian, these vines have overgrown the doorway, though you've at least convinced the creature that you're not a threat for now, but you're separated from your companion.
Yes.
And the goblins just kind of like have this mystified look on their face, and they turn to you and they say, she has sealed herself away. What are you going to do now?
Did we determine in a previous adventure that the sword that they had was valuable, or no? Was anything other than an ordinary sword?
It's a pretty standard sword. It is worth a gold on its own, and they have basically shoved it into your hands. So they're presumably not going to ask for it back, though. We'll cross that bridge if we get to it.
Fair. I would like to do. Actually, sorry, quick rules question. What's the mechanics of spending a hunt token to get a treasure? Is that just something that happens during another roll?
Nope, you can do it at any point. So you can just say, hey, I think I'd like to find a treasure. Here's my hunt token.
I'm gonna do that in a bit then. I'm going to do a hunt roll. I'm going to examine these vines. I'm going to examine the area. I'm going to get an idea of, okay, where are the vines coming from? Are they linked to something? I talked to the goblins. Have you figured out a way to deal with these vines at all? Is anything worked?
Yeah, sounds great. So for the hunt roll, I think you've told us how you're exploring the environment.
Yes.
So you get 1 die just for exploring the world and asking the GM questions about it.
Awesome.
For a second die, do you have a skill or piece of equipment that makes your hunt easier?
Do beasts or hunting work for this?
Off of my initial thought, I would say no, but I'm happy to be persuaded otherwise. If you can come up with an explanation how they would help in this scenario.
I'm just thinking beasts and hunting both involve being in the woods, being around plants. And so I have to have at least a tangential idea of like how plants work, how they grow, what can be done to like take care of them if they're a problem between the hunt. That's my thinking.
You know what? I'm gonna steal slightly from some other games I've played where I like when games say you can have a thing if you narrate a scene, right? Narrate a flashback or something like that. So why don't you? I'll let you use your hunting skill.
Mm-hmm.
If you tell us a time Randon encountered, a plant similar to this, a fast-growing vined plant, and how did you deal with it in that scenario?
There was a time when I was doing a hunt for the druids, and I had to hunt down a rogue hedge wizard, and the hedge wizard's expertise was plants, was specifically growing plants quickly. So I had to figure out a way to, and it was a similar situation to this. The wizard would sort of lock themselves in a space, and then they would use vines to be that extra cover. So I had to figure out a way to cut back the vines, make sure they wouldn't grow again, and then go in and deal with the hedge wizard themselves.
Excellent. So then I'm happy to hand over that light die for that.
Excellent.
All right, so you got your 2 light dice. Go ahead and roll.
Will do. Ooh, a 6 and a 3.
All right, so a 6, you take 1 token. I'm sorry, I've already blanked on the questions you asked.
Where are the vines coming from, and how can I cut them back? Is basically the questions I was looking for.
Yes. Okay. So you can definitely see the vines. The vines are growing all over this area. They cover the walls, and they lead up that stairway that you've walked down. Mm-hmm. And so while the explosion of fire dealt with all the pollen that was in the air, the vines themselves still look to have a fairly green, hardy life to them. They're singed in places, but the fast, quick burst of flame wasn't enough to just totally destroy them and break them. So the vines are all over and have snaked their way over to the door. They, in fact, I think you can see they were growing out of the doorway and coming from the room within.
Okay.
In terms of how to deal with them, I don't know that there's anything real evident in your current scenario. Fire doesn't seem, at least quick bursts of fire, isn't enough to deal with them. I'm going to leave it to you to explore some more, I think, and look for other possible scenarios. But I think the goblins reply to you that these plants, they are fast growing and they are dangerous. In a blink of an eye, they'll grasp you by the ankle, pull you down. You must always be watchful. One of them pulls their eye. You must keep your eye on them.
I tap my eye in understanding. Yes. I've got a couple of other ideas, but Kazian, do you want to get in on this?
I mean, this kind of seems like something that you would just like take a brutish axe to. Like, where did Gordrick get himself off to? That seems like his job.
I think he's on the other side of this door.
that'll be a problem.
I
then.
just yell, sorry, I'm a little preoccupied.
Let's see, and you said there was another exit out of this room, kind of into like someone's potential home.
Yeah, there's like a secondary doorway. It's much smaller. It doesn't look like something that's been built as part of this tomb originally. It looks more like a recent carved out addition, about midway of the chamber.
Okay. Yeah, Cassian will say, well, if we can't go through the barrier, maybe there's a way we can go around it. This looks man-made. Someone may have tunneled their way through.
And you step towards this room, and the goblins just say to you as you're walking, "Oh, that's our hovel. That's where we live."
Now, and Cassian kind of like just recoils a bit because I'm assuming the goblins have like a certain smell to them.
There's definitely the smell of excrement coming from within.
And what a lovely hovel it is. There aren't any other like exits or tunnels in there, is there? That we would have to go through?
Maybe from below, or I mean, we have some pickaxes. That's what we dug this one out with. You could, but it'd take you months. It took us a long time.
And that won't work. I guess, should we try going further down, Randon? Maybe there's a way we can bypass it that way.
I yell at the door. Gordred, does there seem like there's another entrance to that room anywhere?
How do you think I got in here?
Right. Do I remember how he got in there?
So, Gordred, so that the original stone bridge leading to the bronze door, there you could see from there a like opening down below in the pit. It's about a 20-foot climb down. And so that's how Gordred ended up there, because Gordred was the one that threw the torch and was inside when the blast happened. And so they got blown over the edge and opted to climb down instead of climb back up.
Right. Gotcha.
So yeah, you could definitely, consider.
Seems a little treacherous.
Yeah.
So I've got another idea. I have soap. I have Baron Deer Musk. We have established in canon that we have goblin feces. I think we should try and make some pesticide.
Don't accidentally make fertilizer.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
I think Cassian's like looking more and more horrified than you say pesticide, and they're like, oh, that might work.
Do I know that Cassian has some skill in poison?
Yeah, I think it's one of those, like, he never outright says it, but he just seems to know a lot about it, and you've kind of picked up that he has experience with poisons.
So do you happen to know of any poison mixtures that would do well against plants?
Oh, I mean, I don't really, like dabbling with the stuff. It's, unsavory things and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, and then I think Cassian goes on like this rambling spiel of like, if you use this tincture with this here, it can necrotize plant life or whatever. And can I try and do like would this be a hunt roll to see if I can think of like anything we might find in the area or that we have on hand to make a poison that would target plants?
I think that's a hunt roll. Yeah, to look for to see if you've got the ingredients on hand.
Okay.
I think we'll do this hunt roll, and I just noticed the time, and then we'll go ahead and take our first break.
Okay. Let's see. So that is. So I have the skill. So.
Yeah, I think you've got both light dice in this case.
2 and a 6.
Okay, so you get a hunt token. So you go ahead and take that. And I'm just now realizing it's up to me whether or not to say that you find the stuff. I think this is a great idea. So I'm going to say yeah. Why don't you tell us? What's like the secret ingredient, the linchpin ingredient that you're able to find, in this area? I mean, you've got plants and stuff growing around. It is a kind of a damp, or was a damp dungeon. It's only somewhat singed, so there could be still mold and things around like that. Yeah, what do you find that you think is the thing Cassian needs for completing this poison recipe?
I think Cassian has like a bowl that he's going around collecting different like moss and lichen and stuff that he finds here. And the whole time is talking about how like he doesn't know anything about poisons, like that's such unsavory stuff. Like, you can get arrested if you know a lot about poisons. And he's just like mixing it up like an expert, and then kind of looks around and he's got just a little unassuming ring on him that he like pops the top on. And it's one of those like hidden compartment rings, and just like pours it in. There's a little bit of like fizzing and bubbling that happens. And he's like, but this might work.
100% just looking the other way when he does this. Like, nope, don't know you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just before we take our break, what I'll leave you with is, Cassian, as you're finishing up mixing together this concoction, Gordred, you are, I'm picturing you just like thrown over the lid of this thing with everything you've managed to pile on top of it. And then you feel something snaking up your leg, wrapping around the ankle slowly and tightening. And that is where we'll stop for the moment. Let's go ahead and take 10 minutes. So it's 9 after, let's just say 20 after. We'll come back. All right, see y'all then. Okay. So we are back. We last left off. Cassian has brewed what was hopefully some sort of a poison to peel back the plant life here. Just as Gordred, who is struggling to keep this lid on the sarcophagus, has felt something creeping up his leg. So I'm kind of curious. I think let's hear from Gordred first. What's your reaction? What do you do as you feel something, moving along your ankle, creeping up your leg?
I mean, first reaction is, oh shit. Second reaction is something is trying to like drag me off of here. So I grab on to like the opposite corner. If it's pulling me in one direction, I'm like grabbing onto the opposite corner of the sarcophagus, so I have like the best possible handhold. And I like maybe shout like, hurry up a little. It's something is trying to get me off of here. I'm like struggling for words, but it mostly just comes through as, hurry up, please.
And I don't think I want to do a risk roll for the poison application. I think I'm just inclined to like kind of give that to you, and say that. Well, why don't you go and tell us, Cassian, what's it look like as you start applying this pesticide? How do you go about applying it?
I think Cassian kind of shouts back at Gordred, like, I can't just hurry this up. Do you have any idea what I just made? And then like pauses for a beat and is like, I mean, I don't even know what I made. I don't know anything about this. And then like paints it on, and it immediately just like sucks all the moisture out of the plants, and they just kind of like shrink and shrivel up. And then Cassian takes like a rock from the ground or like a stick or whatever, and can just easily kind of like break through it, where it just turned into like grayish hollowed out plant material, and then just basically paints that down kind of a line to be able to like break a slit in through the area.
Yeah, and what I'm gonna say is that, so yeah, you paint it on, and it's like the tip where you apply it, it becomes necrotic and starts to fall away easily. But just as quickly as you're knocking it away, you see fresh growth coming in right behind it. So I mean, it's basically, a scenario of like you've got a Windows moment to paint it on, knock it out, and slide through, and then it's gonna seal up right behind you. Brandon, do you press your way through as well with Cassian, or?
Absolutely, yeah, coming in as well.
Okay, so the two of you press through, and Brandon, you probably even catch like a bit of the growth that like snags on your shirt as it is rebinding itself just as fast as you can deal with it. And you enter, and at this point now, Gordred, this vine has snaked up your leg, wrapped itself up to the knee, and is firmly around you and is pulling your leg back as you're holding on to the edge of the sarcophagus. I want to hear what's the group's plan at this point? If Gordred loses their grasp, then this thing is undone. The whatever's inside is going to come out. But if you don't deal with the vine, it's very likely to pull their leg off.
Do I have any of the poison left, or was that used all on the entryway?
Let's say you do have some left, but I'm thinking maybe it's a risk roll to try and apply this right to it. I don't know. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, I think maybe like because the vines on the entryway were so stationary, he was able to like take his time and be methodical. Where this, like the leg is thrashing around, and it's a risk of he might get it either on his own hands, he might get it on Gordred's leg. It could like go anywhere.
Yeah, it might just disrupt the whole balance of things. So yeah, let's do a risk roll here.
Okay.
I could also see a matter of like, how fast can you do this? Both of like, there's the physical harm that could happen to Gordred if I'm really holding on. I think Gordred would probably let go before their leg gets torn off, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I think we know what you hope will happen. You hope we'll apply this poison and be able to take the vine off without harming Gordred or yourself.
Mhm.
We've got a couple ideas of what could go wrong. The vine that you could harm yourself or Gordred. You might disrupt the balance of this weight game Gordred has going on. Anything else anyone has ideas for what could go wrong?
We use up the poison, we kill the vine, and then another vine pops out and grabs Gordred's other leg.
Yeah, this is the last of the poison.
I think like another risk is basically the bowl the poison's in like gets kind of flipped up and some splashes on Cashin.
Yeah. All right. So that's what could go wrong. So you get a light colored die if the task is something you're skilled at, using your occupation, background, or training, or because you're taking advantage of a piece of equipment or the environment. I think in this case, you're using the poison. So I think that makes sense for at least an item of equipment or environment. Okay. And you can get a second light die for a devil's bargain. Anyone have any devil's bargains to offer?
Somehow in the struggle, the bones that we saw earlier are maybe not lost, but I don't know, exposed, and they're, what am I trying to say? We become aware of the bones, but we don't have the same attachment to them that Gordred does, so that for us it's just treasure.
Yeah. Yeah, I like doing something with the bones. I was trying to think of something with the bones too. Okay, my idea, here's my idea for the bones. This woman, whatever she is, in this sarcophagus, they animate the bones. The bones will animate and start to reassemble themselves. Any other ideas? Okay, so we've got those two devil's bargains. Cassian, any of those that you want to take?
I'll say the reanimating the bones.
Okay.
Because it kind of also ties in the other one of like, we're aware of them now. We're very aware of them.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll get some holy, unholy bones.
Mm-hmm.
And would you like to add a dark die? Would you like to risk your mind or body in order to succeed?
Yeah, I think this is a pretty risky roll going on right now.
Okay. So you got two light and one dark.
5 and a 4 on the light, and then a 4 on the dark.
All right. So with that roll, you will succeed, but there's some kind of complication. Let's see. And the bones are definitely going to reanimate and reassemble themselves. So what would a complication be in this scenario? I think I'm going to say the complication is that, given all the thrashing that's happening, the application of the poison, you spill some over to yourself, and then you'll have the option of either taking a ruin, or you can mark a piece of your armor if you would like to neglect that ruin.
Okay. So that would put my ruin at 5, which is pretty high. I think I'll mark an armor, and I think it marks Cassian's unassuming nature by it'll heal a bit, but like some of it kind of gets on his face and kind of along his neck, and it starts to sizzle before he's able to like wipe it away and clean it. And he just has like very kind of intimidating scars where it's like, okay, this isn't just some meek, unassuming person.
Right. And then I will say, you've got the option to re-roll if you want to push your luck.
Oh,
go for that 6.
That's right. But you just re-roll on the dark die?
You'll add a dark die, and then you roll all of those dice. You'll be rolling 2 dark dice and 2 light dice this time.
Okay. Yeah,
Want to try that?
Let's see what happens. Oh God. So that was a 3 and a 1 on the light die, and then double 5s on the darks.
Okay. So you can't roll again because the dark die is the highest.
Okay.
And your ruin is going to go up by 1. So I think we'll stick with the same complication. I actually don't know if this is technically allowed by the rules. I'm going to let you still mark the armor instead of taking the ruin increase, because I just think it makes sense.
Okay.
Actually, you know what? Sorry, I'm just thinking through, because what's supposed to happen if the dark die is the highest, your ruin goes up, and there's a complication on top of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You kind of got the short end of the stick with pushing your luck here. So I'm going to keep the same complication.
Okay.
But in addition to marking your armor, you're going to have to raise your ruin as well.
Okay.
And yeah, I think it's probably just because, the extent of the scarring from the poison splashing around has caught you. And I'm also going to say it's the sight of so the bones begin to pick themselves up out of the urn, and you hear them clacking as they're like jumbling together and starting to form back together. And then you see this partial skeleton as some of its like ribs are missing. The femur is in multiple pieces, though it's kind of holding itself together. And the bits of vine start to snake out to form sort of the like the nervous system on an anatomy map to kind of like piece the bits back together. And then it turns its head to you, Cassian, and you see the jaw of it just move as if speaking, and you hear that same voice again in your head, and it says, "You had such promise, Cassian, but now look at you, just a scarred creature, cast aside." But Gordred, your leg has come free, and I think at this point, no, I'll say you've still got the lid under control. I'll give you that. That was what you were fighting for, so I don't want to take that away. You've got the lid under control. The 3 of you are now in the same room, but it appears the vines have grown over the entryway, and you were somewhat entombed in here with whatever is inside of this sarcophagus.
Sorry to jump ahead here, but I actually wanted to do something to give Gordred a little bit more ability to move about. Are we okay if I do that first, or should we?
Sounds fine to me.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have an idea to make this situation better, then
I think I can at least bring it to
by all means.
to like a stability. I take the urn that the bones are in and I move it off and I jump on the top of the sarcophagus where it was, and I say, Gordred, go take care of that thing. And then as soon as Gordred moves off, I don't go completely werebear, but I go werebear enough that I now weigh a lot more. So like, "Rrr, rrr."
Okay. Gordred, so you see this skeleton that has stitched itself back together. And I mean, you can see the outline of the saint. This saint, I mean, was this someone venerated by the state, or were they wanted by the state? Basically, was this a person that was, someone you would have, treasured or scorned?
It's someone that if I had been a generation earlier, I would have been the one sent to murder him and bring his bones back. So if I have any Inquisitor smell left on me, skeleton probably doesn't fit me.
Yeah, I think. Why don't you go ahead, tell us, what's it look like as you're squaring off to the skeleton? I think it sounds like that's what's happening.
I mean, benefit of having a big heavy staff is ostensibly good against bones. But yeah, Gordred kind of just really firmly plants his feet against the stone floor, staff in front, two hands, metal tips pointed forward, squaring off with the skeleton, just ready to kind of crack weak points in the bone. I think the goal maybe is like to try to overcome it before the vines can reinforce it, or like beat it faster than the vines can repair the bones and push everything back together.
Yeah. And as you're squaring off on this, we've got Randon, the partial werebear, trying to hug the lid tight. I think there's just an edge that maybe is askew. And Randon, you start to hear this like heavy buzzing sound from within as you start to see wasp crawling their way out from under the lid. I think at this point, like, we're going into combat with this thing inside, because it's a sorceress, right? And like they're controlling a lot of what's happening in this room. So truly, that's who you're fighting against in this scenario. That you are dealing with manifestations of it in different forms, right? So I think we're going to go into combat at this point. Joe, you were here last week when we first did this, so I'll briefly explain how combat works. Combat in Trophy Gold kind of takes the whole thing and wraps it up into what can be a single roll, but sometimes plays out in multiple rolls. So first we go around. Well, let me just read the rules. Let's do that. It better explains it. So when you attempt to defeat a monstrosity, first say how you expose yourself to injury or attack, and then you roll a single light die. That number on the die is your weak point and represents the risks you're taking to face the monster. If there are multiple treasure hunters involved, each one rolls their own light die. Once we've established weak points for everyone, then we gather up a number of dark dice equal to the total number of treasure hunters involved, and we roll all of the dark dice together. If the dark dice equal or exceed the monster's endurance, then the monster is defeated. And we'll narrate what that looks like and how each person contributes to the combat. If any of those dice equal a weak point, then that person is going to take harm as part of the combat. They'll take ruin, or they can mark their armor. And if it's not enough, then we add another dark die and roll again. And we keep going until either you meet or beat the endurance, or you decide to flee, which is a risk roll to be able to do.
Okay.
So you're all in the room where there is combat happening. You don't have to technically be part of the combat, though I have a hard time seeing how you wouldn't be. So first, who all is going to be participating in this? Brandon? Gordred?
Yeah.
Yep. Cassian? That's, yeah. So how are you exposing yourself to injury or attack?
For Gordred, there's the obvious bit is the skeleton. Like I am essentially doing hand-to-hand combat
Yeah.
against this reanimated skeleton.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, we've got vines in this room.
Yeah.
That are potentially a threat. There are these wasps now crawling out. There are voices in people's heads, like, and if you crack open the sarcophagi, there's also that. But like this is where like Trophy Gold lets us like kind of narrate a lot of this. Like if y'all end up defeating it, then maybe you get to say like, oh, well, we crack it open, we drive a stake right through our heart, and that's it. We'll see how that works out. But so you can be pretty open about how you're at risk. So Gordred, you're fighting the skeleton. It sounds like definitely a risk for that. Cassian, how do you put yourself at risk in this scenario?
I had the idea of using a ritual for the combat to try and help out. So I think I want to say it was Rose before who had done it, where like they had to stay stationary and kind of like weren't really fully aware of their surroundings. So I think that's kind of where Cassian's putting themselves at risk.
Sounds good to me. And I'll note for anyone that might watch this or listen to this later, the final Trophy Gold rules, they say, are going to have rules for how rituals work in combat. We're making it up on the fly because the original rules don't actually say, but I think that's reasonable. And what about Randon? How are you putting yourself at risk?
I'm basically exposing myself to like attack from behind, from being stung by these wasps, because my job right now is just to stay as stationary and as heavy as possible.
Right. Sounds good. So would each of you please roll a light die, and I will write down weak points.
It's a 3 for me.
Brandon has a 3.
4 for Cassian.
Cassian has a 4.
Also got a 3.
And a 3 for Gordred. Okay. Who would like to roll our dark dice? We have 3 dark dice to roll for the combat. Doesn't matter who it is.
I can if no one wants to. I have little D6s with skulls carved into them. It seems appropriate.
Nice.
So 4, 3, and 1. So 8 total.
So that's an 8 total. That is not enough. So
Sorry.
and we did roll everyone's weak point. So the monstrosity is not defeated, and you all take harm, take a hit of ruin in this round. I'll remind you, you can mark one of your armor if you don't want to take that ruin. And why don't you? So Gordred, how are you hit? Or what catches you as you're dealing with the skeleton?
So I chose to mark my breastplate instead of taking ruin on this, taking harm directly. But it's this combination, like you see in this like almost like kind of body horror-esque way, the skeleton's arms just like there's these rune-covered bones, and then it like reaches backwards to like go, but just like straight up punch me. And as its arm is coming forward, the vine just shoots out, wraps the arm, and like triples the size of the arm. And it just slams into my breastplate and like dents it inwards.
Nice.
And I just like kind of like stagger backwards.
Yeah. And then let's have Randon. Randon, what do we see happening with you?
So while Gordred and the skeleton are fighting, at one point the skeleton does something very similar, except instead of increasing the length of the arm, they go and there's like 1, 2, 3, 4 vines with thorns that whip out and just and Gordred moves out of the way, but I'm there. So just rakes across, and I've marked off my chainmail. But yeah, it just like rakes across the chainmail, and I make a sound that is very very unmacho ranger type. It's,
and I think it comes away, and you see these, you know, like 2-inch, 3-inch long rose thorns just embedded into the chainmail throughout. And then Cassian, what ritual are you performing, and how does that look?
So Cassian is performing I Have Bind, which I was thinking would be helpful for either holding the skeleton in place or holding the sorcerer if they happen to get out. And I ended up having to mark agility or like flexibility to avoid harm. So I think it kind of looks like Cassian's about to start casting the ritual, and maybe the sorceress kind of realizes that, and there's a vine that just snakes up Cassian's leg and like instantly just twists and pulls him down, and you hear this like kind of cracking sound and like a wet like puncturing sound, and he uses like the last of the poison just in time and is able to stand up, but one of his legs is just snapped in 3 different places, like maybe a little bit of bone sticking out with like kind of blood pouring down it. But he's trying to focus as much on the spell as he can. And I kind of imagine he like puts his hand in like a kind of spell shape and then takes like the long ropes that he has and like wraps them around his hand a little bit. And I think we'll say uses it on the skeleton since the sorcerer isn't out yet. And as he tightens the robes on his hand that he's making, you see like the vines on the skeleton start to like suck in, like there's fabric wrapping around them, and then he just gives a hard like tug on his hand to like hold it all in place, and that causes the like legs and limbs on the skeleton to just like shrink in and kind of like maybe a few of the bones kind of like snap together and like crack open. Some of the vines like grind against each other, and it just like hovers in midair as its legs are like tucked into its body and stuff.
Yeah, and I'm going to advance the monstrosity a bit. So I'm going to say, Brandon, as you're attempting to hold this lid down, but then you're distracted with the scraping of the thorns across the lid, and a heavy shift moves 2 feet to the right and is now open, and you see the woman begin to climb up out of it. And she emerges with this crown of thorns on her head, and you can see her face is now covered in wasps as they crawl out from the center of her rose eyes. And she scans the room at all of you. And now we will go on to our next round of combat. So we'll add another dice and roll again. So Joel, if you'd like to go ahead and roll 4 dice this time and hope for no 3s and 4s.
I got 2 6s, a 2, and a 3.
Okay. Brandon and Gordred, your weak point came up, so you do take another hit. But that is enough. That is the endurance was 11, so you have beat the endurance. So let's go around again. I'm open to whoever wants to have the killing blow, or if you all want to try and narrate like a team effort, that's great too. But what's it look like in this next set of the combat? Gordred, Randon, how do you take some harm but then rally and all of you defeat this monstrosity? Let's start with Randon this time.
So quick question, are we okay with me using a ritual as part of the storytelling in combat?
I'm fine with that. I'm basically using rituals in combat as fictional positioning right now. There's not Perfect. because there's already a risk in doing combat, so there's not like there's a secondary risk roll.
Okay.
They have said that this will be addressed in the the books that are being shipped out this summer. So we'll see if it's drastically different.
We'll see.
Yeah.
So I think Gordred and I have definitely gotten into fights together before. So I think we look at each other and we just have one of those moments. And Gordred leaps. This is what I'm seeing. Feel free to edit as you want. Gordred leaps over the sarcophagus away from the skeleton and toward the sorcerer. And I roll on the sarcophagus over to where the bone creature is. And as I roll, I shift back to my regular human form. And I think, Gordred, you can narrate how you take out the sorceress. But what I do is, as I'm rolling, my hand catches on fire because I have the Kindle ritual. And I just shove it right in the middle of the skeleton, and it lights up all of the vines. It turns into this flame, and it turns into a flaming skeleton, which, hey, surprise, that burns me.
Yeah, so I chose to take a ruin for the harm instead, and I think that's primarily the psychological effect of seeing the sorceress and having to push through to like directly attack her, partially despite the fact that she's wearing these artifacts that remind me of my betrothed. And how does this actually look? I think she's just actually really brittle in this form. And Randon, you managed to we managed to distract enough in whatever sequences we did. You rolling off, lighting the skeleton on fire, and I'm able to get behind and just like crack down into spinal column, and she just kind of caves in, and I'm picturing like the swarm, like this like pop of petals, and then the swarm of wasps just kind of going wild.
And Cassian, what's your role in all of this?
I think Cassian's still using the bind ritual, so I think like, oh, and it was on the skeleton, so I think it's perfect that like as Randon like plunges the hand in there and like the whole skeleton erupts in flames, the skeleton starts to like go to choke Randon and just like put his flaming hands on his face and burn him. But then you see the hands basically just like snap backwards and like wrap around itself as Cassian kind of like reapplies the ritual and just like tightens his like the robes around his hand that he was using to kind of like sympathetically represent the binding even tighter. And there's a little bit of like a crack as like he tightens it so hard that he breaks his own hand to like protect his friend, and a little bit of like trickle of blood runs down his wrist.
And so with a great screaming and wail, the sorcerer's brittle body crumples, and I think it crumples and like just turns into rose petals. And in the center of this pile of petals lies this crown of thorns. Now, when you defeat a monstrosity, you do get to roll gold dice. So we take a number of gold dice equal to the monstrosity's endurance, which was 11, and you roll that many dice. And for each 6 that comes up, you get 1 artifact or item worth of gold. So I don't know if anyone has 11d6 around, or we can, roll multiple times and just add up the sixes.
I've got 7.
I have virtual dice, so I can roll as many as I
Perfect.
need, but pick a color and go for it. 11d6. Will it go? Yes. 2 6s.
Okay. Not terrible. Could have been better. I was hoping for
Could
more.
have been better. About average.
So what 2 items do y'all think you find left behind from the monstrosity that are worth some gold?
Sorry to be a rules lawyer, but just really quickly, is this separate from treasure we might find in the room?
This is separate. Yes.
Okay.
There could be other treasure in other places. This is specifically, it's sort of like a, I loot the body kind of thing. It can also be, parts harvested from a monster, or just things that might have been on them.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's treasure you get specifically for defeating a monster in Trophy Gold.
I think one of the things we find is a jeweled rose that looks like it is made of bone and rose petals. It's very, very intricate.
That's very nice. I like that. Any ideas for the second piece?
Do you have an idea, Chris?
One idea I had is maybe inside the sorceress's body was like honeycomb, like a hive of the wasps. And maybe it's rare, might have alchemical properties, might have magical properties.
Just like really good honeycomb. I love that.
It could literally just be like, this
Yeah.
is the most primo honeycomb. You only get it from inside of sorcerer's body.
Yeah. And so I'll also say, we have the bestiary tab that we can click to, and that is where we can track the monsters you have fought and not necessarily beat, because you can add beasts. It's just monsters you face. So if someone wants to add a new beast, you get to name it and then describe it. So I just saw a new one pop up. Thoughts on our name? What do we want to call this person, this thing?
Sorceress of rose and wasps.
Descriptive works. Good.
And then in the
undead plant sorceress. Or
I'll put
the title we got is good.
Endurance. Did anyone add a description? It didn't show up for me. If we did. I'm not hearing a yes, so I don't think anyone's added a description.
No.
Does someone want to, or I don't suppose it's strictly necessary, but
I can try to flesh something out. 1 second.
To me, the neat thing is that, like, so the Trophy Gold is written. The bestiary actually belongs to the players, not the characters. So, like, if you lose your characters, you still keep your bestiary, and you can add new characters. It's kind of a way of, like, players, helping build the world. And so I think it's something that's really neat, especially if you ever do like a longer term campaign, right? Kind of have a track record of everything you've gone to. All right. So you have vanquished the sorceress in, we'll call it her lair. Why not? And I think, afterwards you see that, like, the vine growth the rapid vine growth and such has stopped. But the vines have not died. The vines are still alive. There is still this plant growth all over. And you start to see now that the plant growth doesn't even originate from this room. It's coming from somewhere else. You can see where the vines are actually growing in through that that broken entryway that Gordred climbed through previously. And so I'll remind you, the set goal here is to actually find the path to the corrupting plant. So whatever this plant is still seems to exist within this dungeon.
And we haven't found the Saint's Eyes either.
Correct, and that is the thing you're paid to be here to do. But the growth has stopped. It does seem like you at least don't have to worry about vines taking hold of your ankles at this point. So what would you like to do?
I'm definitely going to loot the room.
Okay.
Spend a hunt token and find a treasure.
Okay. Where are you looking?
I'm examining the inside of the sarcophagus. I definitely don't feel bad about looting the sarcophagus.
Yeah. So yeah, go ahead and remove one hunt token.
Okay.
And you find inside of the sarcophagus a small porcelain doll.
I definitely pack the doll away very, very carefully. Do not look at it. Do not look deeply into its eyes. Do not wonder why there is a porcelain doll in the script. Just nope, 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 nope.
Someone back in town, they'll pay me a gold for that. That's all I care about.
Exactly.
Okay. Would anyone else like to? You can evaluate other things in the room, right? Look through some of the urns or other areas, or you can spend cash and hunt tokens.
First thing on Gordred's mind is recovering the crown off of the sorceress's corpse. To the exclusion of to the exclusion of ignoring everyone else here.
Yeah, I'm wondering if this is a hunt roll. I'm kind of inclined to do a hunt roll just because, feels like we're exploring the world a bit, so why not?
All right.
We're asking some questions about things.
Yeah, it's almost like is this what I think it is?
Right. That's kind of what I assumed. I should have asked that question.
Yeah, just to set the stakes.
So yeah, you go to pick up the crown of thorns. How are you evaluating it? How are you exploring it?
I think if this is what I think it is, this is one of the things I'm looking for my betrothed. It will have certain properties if I prick my fingers on the thorns. I will feel a rush of euphoria, and then probably some minor hallucinations. I'll approach it like it's very careful, just barely pricking my finger, ideally, to keep the effects as minimal as possible. But
yeah, I like it. Okay, so you get one night die for exploring. Do you have a skill or piece of equipment to make your hunt easier?
I think I'm applying secrets.
I think so too. I think that makes sense.
Alternately, I could imagine taking a ton of time to do this or something in its persistence, but secrets I think is the cooler way to go.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, go ahead and roll 2 dice.
A 1 and a 4.
1 and a 4. Okay, so you take a token, but you encounter something terrible.
Fun. What could go wrong?
I think in this case, I think so. You go to prick your finger on a rose thorn, and you attempt to be, somewhat careful with it, but maybe it's fatigue from everything you've been through. It's a deeper prick than you expected. And there is a sense of euphoria. And after that passes away, you realize your finger is still bleeding from the prick. You wipe it away, and more blood comes from the surface. No matter how much you wipe and wipe and wipe, it still continues to bleed. So I'm going to give you the condition of bleeding. We'll see if that comes into play. And Cassie, anything you'd like to do before we take our next break? Any actions?
Was it kind of established before that the saints' bones were potentially treasure?
I think that's totally true.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think if they're of some historical importance, which it sounds like they are, then yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think as like Gordred is distracted with the crown, Cassian is kind of like taking one of the bones, like dusting all the ash off and like putting it in a bag, and is probably mumbling to himself like, I think I know someone on the black market who would pay for these, and is just kind of like putting them in a bag and like sealing it up.
Yeah, so go ahead. I think you can just add that to your found equipment, Saint's Bones. They're at least worth a gold, for sure.
Okay.
All right, and I think we'll go ahead and take a quick break. You can certainly still do more things in this room if you want. If you want to dig around a bit more in it or cash in hunt tokens or whatever. But let's take 5 minutes. Good with everyone? So it's kind of a weird timing. We'll come back at 13 after the hour, 13 or 14. See you then. Okay. So let's see. Where did we leave off? Oh, you picked up the not the crown. You picked up the what was it?
Bones. The
bones.
Saints'
Bones. Yes. Sorry, my mind just went blank. So yeah, you're all in this room. There's some more urns and things you can explore if you want to potentially loot for treasure, or the looming question is, where is the path? Where are the eyes, and where's the path to the corrupting plant? And so you can continue looking for the path in this set, or go to the next set. Or you can spend some hunt tokens if you want to, kind of just gain the answer, unlock it that way.
I want to spend another hunt token and get more loot is what I want to do.
It's an excellent option as well. Yeah, I'm just curious. Let's see, how's everyone doing in terms of meeting their burdens? It looks like some people are getting a little close. Still need some more treasure.
Mm-hmm.
So you looked in the sarcophagus last time. Where do you think you're looking this time?
No, sorry. I'm going to examine the funerary urns. I'm going to try and do so in a way that's at least somewhat respectful, but I'm looking for anything that may have been tied directly to this sorceress who was in the sarcophagus.
Okay. And I think the second or third one you come to, you find it's the urn itself. And you recognize it's got the symbols of the Lyceum. How do we say that? Yokata. That's not right. I'm just gonna stick with Lyceum. I can say that word. It's the symbols of the Lyceum that are on the outside of this vase, and you realize that this vase itself is a treasure.
Excellent. I will store that as well. So, a sort of character comment. Do we as a group have an agreement for splitting gold? Is it kind of just what we find, we find?
I think that's up to the table. Every game I've played, it's basically been like what you find is yours. I did mean to ask. So you got 2 gold from the gold roll for beating the monster. Mm-hmm. Who was taking those 2 gold? Who, how do you want to split that? Because I think that probably needs to be discussed.
Okay.
But really, I guess it's really up to the group.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, as long as I have my base expenses covered, I'm happy to share in a pool anything past that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was planning on using another hunt token here to get some more gold because I'm coming up a little short on my burden. So I'm fine with you guys taking that loot if you want. Should we say just like add them to someone's character sheet now and kind of like at the end of the roll or at the end of the what would you call it, excursion, if someone's a little short on money, we just like slip it to them to help pay their bills?
Yeah,
I like reasonable. That. I'll record the bone rose on my sheet since
okay, and I'll grab the honeycomb.
Perfect.
And I think for the hunt token that I was kind of talking about spending, I was kind of imagining like maybe after Randon looked over the sarcophagus, Cashin kind of comes up to it and like looks over it again, but instead of a very like, I don't know, he's looking at it from like a spy's mindset or like a servant of the Lyceum. So he's looking through like checking for secret compartments, and maybe he knows like the Lyceum values the mind, so it's like behind the pillow where like the brain rested and stuff like that, and is like feeling around for secret compartments and is looking for like secret information the sorcerer had, kind of since they were taunting Cashin with it, hoping to find her like records or anything like that.
Yeah, I like that. And so you're turning in a hunt token, right?
Yep.
So I think it's behind the pillow, like you said. I think you find a like a tassel, like a pendant tassel marking someone of a high rank from the Lyceum. So sort of like, an honorary thing that this person in life had been awarded.
I think Cashin kind of looks at the remains of the sorcerer and is like, looks like I wasn't the only one that showed so much promise. And then like pockets the tassel in his bag.
I think probably about now you hear some grunts and you see the vines being torn from the entryway as the goblins have, with their bare claws, just started ripping the vines away. And they break through the doorway. One of them's holding a shovel, another holding a pickaxe, and they come bursting in. Ah! And then they stop. Oh, thank God. You took care of it. Okay. I'm gonna be honest. It was their idea to even come. I thought you were dead.
You were 3 very brave goblins. Thank you.
Well, I suppose it's us that should be thanking you. Dealt with this thing. Well, we rightfully stole this living place. I don't see why anyone should take it from us.
Agreed. You're certainly squatting here. How long have you had to deal with these things anyway?
It all seemed fine the first few months we were here, and then the fish people showed up. They started poking around and messing with things, and they drug that plant in here. Stuff just started getting weird from that point.
The plant, was it a large plant?
So it was huge.
And they drug it down those stairs, right? The ones outside, and
oh yeah,
those are the drag marks I saw. Interesting.
They brought it into here. Don't know where it went.
Wait, they drug it down and then they brought it into here. They didn't bring it further down the stairs?
No.
This is starting to make sense now. Oh, did you want your sword back?
I mean, I figured you'd want it as some sort of like payment, but I mean, if you don't need it, maybe I'll practice.
That's all right. We'll be keeping it.
Are you sure? I feel like you're going back on your promise now.
I don't remember promising. I just, asked.
Well, you're a lot bigger than me, so okay.
I'll mark the sword down.
Yeah, yeah, you can mark down the sword. That's another treasure worth of gold. And so I think they just kind of say, well, we're looking forward to things getting back to normal around here. We'll be out here, I guess, if you need us. But there's still the fish people downstairs. I don't know. Maybe they.
We'll likely have to deal with them too before all this is done.
To be fair, they used to be fine neighbors. It kind of took a turn after the whole plant thing. I don't really know why. And then she showed up, and it was just ugh.
So the plant first, and then her.
Yeah.
It's an odd place.
What? Maybe we shouldn't make our home in some random crypt. But hey, what's a goblin to do, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, hey, what are you gonna do? Live in a cave in the woods? I mean, who does that, right?
What do I look like? A druid?
You're good people.
I'm just imagining that Cassian is just like visibly uncomfortable when they say that.
Yeah, just like live in a cave. He's just touching his pearls, like, oh God. And it's just looking at Gordred, like, what are they talking about?
Sounds like they know druids.
I've heard they never bathe.
So, thoughts on what's next?
Sounds like we need to go further down. If this isn't where the vines started.
Yeah. I've kind of got a thought on what happened to the plant, but I want to do just a bit more of an exploration first, if that's okay.
Yeah, something in this room, or you mean like heading down?
Something in this room.
Okay. Yeah. What are you doing?
So I have a hypothesis, and I'm sort of searching to prove or disprove my hypothesis. I think what happened was this plant that they brought in is the vines that we're seeing. I'm not exactly sure how it's tied to the sorceress yet, or why the fish people did it, but that's definitely the inciting incident. And you said that the vines are coming in through the same entrance that Gordred came in.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to investigate the vines there. And I want to see, my theory is they brought the plant in here and they somehow like went out that entrance, went somewhere and planted it. And then this is we're basically seeing the leaves of it now.
Yep.
What we're gonna need to find is the root.
Yeah, so this is definitely a hunt roll.
Okay.
So you got your first light die.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I think I think you've told us how you're exploring. It looks like you're, checking around the area of the collapse entryway.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any equipment or skills you're using?
I want to pull out my hunter's journal again, because I've definitely recorded every time that I have dealt with unusual animals or plants. So I want to go back to that and see, is there anything in particular that applies to this?
To be honest, I feel like that one's a little bit of a stretch.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, y'all tell me if I'm being too harsh. I'm just not sure if it was like, oh, this plant is doing this behavior, and so I want to see about that. That kind of makes sense. But I think in this case, right, you're basically like you're looking for like where is it coming from, kind of a thing. And so I'm not sure how a journal entry is going to help in that specific case.
Okay.
Do you want to maybe you've got another slot for additional equipment? Is there additional equipment you want to pull out?
I do. You know what? I think I definitely have a rope and grapple.
Okay, yeah.
And I think I can use that to like lower myself down, crawl up as need be, and see if I can find the source of these vines.
Yeah, totally. Okay, cool. So you've got 2 light dice.
All right.
Go ahead and make your roll.
That's a 2 and a 4.
2 and a 4. So you get a token, but you encounter something terrible. And in this case, so you do find where you find this vine growth that is coming. So as you grapple yourself to the collapse entryway, and you start to like lower yourself down and investigate the area, you can see bits of vine loosely hanging, just what seems like in midair. And they're loping from spot to spot, spanning this whole chasm, this pit. And you can see now that you've moved yourself to the side, there's actually an entryway across. And so it seems like they're connected to something. There's something there, but you can't see whatever that thing is. And I will just remind everyone, the description of the eyes of Saint Largoth were that they will see that which is hidden. So it seems like these vines are growing from someplace across the pit, and they're attached to some sort of hidden pathway.
They're quite literally seeing what is hidden. Interesting. Okay.
So you have achieved the set goal.
Okay.
You have found the path. However, the path is hidden. So you can attempt to navigate the path without fully being able to see it. It's definitely going to be a risk roll, and, one where just character death is on the line. I'll go ahead and put those stakes out there. Or you can continue exploring deeper into the dungeon.
All right, so I'm just going to make some notes here. I pass on to whoever's next. I have an idea of what I want to do next, but
yeah, I'm just thinking like you maybe holler this back to us that there's some sort of hidden path. And I'm thinking like,
Joe, I think you're.
something. Sorry, yeah, I was muted. Sorry. Yeah, I'm directing like there's something invisible over there.
I'm like, if we had a bunch of dirt, and I think Gordon kind of trails off like a bunch of dirt,
Yeah.
and then like realizes, oh, I should explain what I'm thinking. We had a bunch of like dirt or powder or something. We could scatter it to see
And
if it's actually there, but we can't see it.
I think at that point, like Cashin and Gordred are kind of saying they're like all excited about secrets because he's an inquisitor and Cashin's a spy, and he says that. And Cashin kind of like perks up a bit and he's like, I have an idea. Goes back, grabs one of the funerary urns with the ashes in it, and just like very unceremoniously and like heretically just like throws it out the window to try and like cast all that ash on.
I was gonna say we had a bunch of pollen, but we kind of exploded it.
Yeah, so Cassian, you toss the urn and its contents out. You see, it scatter in this big cloud, and some of it just falls down to the bottom of the pit, but then some of it comes to rest just in midair. You start to see the outlines of this path taking shape.
Yeah. And Cashin will point it out and be, okay, see there, like I think that's a knuckle bone, but it's just sitting there. And like right over there, like there's another bone. It's resting on something. Hold on, I'll get more urns. And he just comes back with like 2 urns in each hand and he's like, I'm ready.
Wait for me to get up first.
Just covered in.
Yeah, exactly. It's in my mouth.
Nice. So, are you wanting to cross this path at this point?
Yeah, he'll have like 1 urn in one hand and just kind of like take a handful and like shake it out in front of him to find the path and like slowly walk forward.
Yeah, and I think that's a really clever solution. I think that I'm going to give you that one. Like, I don't think this is going to be a risk roll because you've basically found a way of, revealing the path to be able to walk forward. So you by using this dirt and making your way across, have crossed over this path, and you come to this hewn out area on the other side of the pit. And just inside of here, you can see it's a sizable room, but it feels small because the entire room is consumed with this gigantic plant that just has these flowering bulbs growing all around it, and snaking out from it are all these vines that have made their way across to the other side. So this is a new set. This is the plant itself. The set goal is to destroy the corrupting plant. I will say also, so as you make your way over here, this room is still filled with the pollen.
Okay.
That stuff's pretty explosive, right?
It is. I think Cashin will kind of like start to get close to the room, see the pollen, and backtrack a bit. And it's like, Gordred, I think you had a good solution to this the first time.
good is relative. It worked. It was a little destructive. I almost died. But on the balance of things. So be careful if you light an open flame, but also that might be our way out of here.
Okay.
Or through, into.
We'll certainly do a number on that plant thing.
We could
You know what?
also try to, if we do have access to the bladder, we could try to use it to explore inwards a little. Use it as like a breathing apparatus was the other alternative that we
It's not a bad idea.
brainstormed.
Maybe see if we can figure out a way to, I mean, we throw the torch in there, it lights the pollen on fire. Maybe it kills the thing, maybe it doesn't. We use the bladder, we can get in there, maybe see if we can set up a chain reaction, sort of like blowing out a bunch of stumps at once.
Sure.
Or hunting fish with explosives. That's something that I've tried once.
Cashin just squints more like, right. That sounds like something you do. He's just nodding like,
Yeah, it pisses the druids off, let me tell you.
So, yeah, honestly, I don't think dealing with this plant is like, it's not as dangerous as it might initially seem. I think it's going to be a risk roll, right, for whatever plan y'all are coming up with. So I guess like let's just establish like what is the idea, and then let's do a risk roll and we'll see how it goes. You can see from the get-go, like, it's got a main center bulb and then some ancillary ones and then the vines coming off of it. But like there's clearly like what kind of looks like, the heart of it right there in the center. And it's not terribly far within either.
Would just, at this point, would just using the bladder, Cassian, if you could make more pesticide. If one of us can get in close enough to like poison the root of it.
I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure I could, resist in there for a while. But I think
hold your breath for a while.
But
the bladder buys you more time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know what? Well, out of character, I have regeneration, but you have persistence, and I'm not sure which one would be more powerful in this case. But no, I think Rand is like, yeah, I'll be the one to go in there with the bladder, see if I can place the poison or explosive or whatever we make.
Yeah, I mean, it was pure luck that I was able to come up with that poison the first time, but I can try and see if I can recreate it. And then like it's already starting to like look for lichen along the walls.
We're like giving this really skeptical look, like luck, yeah, luck.
As Cashin is checking like his other ring, and it's like, okay, I still got some. And do you want me to do another roll for the poison?
Nope. I think whoever's gonna attempt to apply the poison, I think we'll have them do a risk roll.
Okay.
So it sounds like that might be Randon.
Yeah, so Cashin will come back with like a bowl of poison and is like, it worked a second time, who knew? And just hands it over to you.
Yeah, you're very lucky.
All right, so you've definitely got the first light die for using a piece of equipment. Devil's bargain. Oh, sorry, we should do what could go wrong. Well, I was gonna say the poison could have no effect. That's an option.
I could definitely like swallow more of this this pollen.
Yeah,
you're technically already pollinated, right?
I am.
Yeah, I think like activating the condition, because you haven't really seen like what's pollinated in. I think that's a
I'll say the plant might have like a instinctive reaction and start thrashing about.
Yeah, those are good options. Any devil's bargains to offer?
I'll say maybe there's something worth money that you think you could barter with the druids for your brother's freedom. Or
Yeah.
maybe something not necessarily worth money in like, conventional society, but valuable to the druids.
Right. Something that could count as gold toward that. I kind of like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm almost thinking like the plant itself is what's valuable to the druids. Like,
oh,
if you could remove the plant, but I'm not sure how to turn that into a devil's bargain.
That's a good question. I'm thinking like if I can take one of the bulbs, with me, then then that would be worth something to the druids. But
okay, I've got it. So I'm gonna say this. This plant would be valuable to the druids, but there's no way you're going to transport this whole thing. So your option for getting part of it out would be to let it implant itself on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest something along this line of the devil's bargain is kind of intentionally activating your pollinated condition.
Yeah.
To let it parasitize you so that you can get it out of here.
I'm taking it.
Okay.
I'm taking it.
Nice. All right. Gosh, I almost feel like that's also worth just like taking the dark die, because I feel like that's totally risking your body. But do you have that option of, do you want to add a dark die to risk your mind or body?
I do.
Okay. So you got two light dice and a dark die.
So remind me, with the dark die, if the dark die is the highest in what I roll, then there's a chance I gain ruin?
Yes. If the dark die is the highest, and it is higher than your ruin, then your ruin goes up.
Your ruin goes up. Okay. All right. 4 on the dark die and a 4 and a 3 on the light die.
Okay. So being tied at the highest means it is still the highest, right?
Okay.
So the dark die is highest. What is your ruin?
No, never mind. Sorry.
So yeah, your ruin's 3. So your ruin does go up.
Okay.
And you can't re-roll since the dark die was the highest.
Because the dark die is highest, I was going to ask. Okay.
Right. So on a 4, you succeed, but there's some kind of complication. The GM describes the complication, and then you describe how you succeed. I mean, I think the complications. Okay, I've got it. The complication has to be with how it. I can't say that word. Parasitize. How it latches onto you. So as you go in to you're using the poison, right? As you go in to give it the poison, and then part of it breaks away to connect to your body, you realize it's also breaking away from all of its vines and tendrils that have snaked out from it, almost as if it's accepting its death. It knows what's coming.
Oh, wow.
And I'll let you describe the plant death in a moment, but beneath the feet of all of you, you feel the path starting to break away as the vines are dying and breaking away, and it turns out they were holding this whole stone pathway together. So what does it look like as you give this plant its poison and as it attaches to you? You're muted.
I'm muted. Not anymore. So there's this, I'm imagining this very sort of anime video game scene where I have the poison in the bowl, and I'm walking toward it, and it's very religious iconography. Like I'm walking with the bowl like it's an offering. The plant like snakes around me and just bites. Like it's not gentle at all. It just bites into my flesh, and like you say, it starts to break off as it realizes it's dying. And there's this part of the main part of the plant that is like a pitcher plant. And as I walk toward it, like actually, yeah, there's like, let's go with the eye idea though. There's these irises that open, and they're not eyes, but they look like they could be eyes. And they open, and like the outer hull of the plant moves away. Like it's literally like opening up its eyes for me to pour in this offering to kill it. And yeah.
Very nice. And so the path underneath all of you has begun to crumble. What do you do in response?
I mean, I'm going to try and grab onto the wall, because I think this room, like, I think there still is a floor to this room even after the plant's gone. So I'm going to try and grab onto the wall just to make sure.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Randon, you're maybe in a better position because you're kind of no longer scared of the pollen. Whereas Cassian and I are like on the edge of the room. We didn't go in. We're kind of like still on the path that is crumbling potentially. And so our options are like sprint back across faster than the path can crumble. Or
not to mention it's a path you can't truly see. You're looking at dirt that is now shifting and falling away. But yeah, essentially your options are you can jump into the room where the plant was / is, and I'd say that's a pretty safe endeavor since you're on that side, or you can attempt to sprint across, in which case I think that's going to be a risk roll if you want to get back to the original room.
I'm guessing there's still the pollen in the air in the room where the plant was, or has that started to?
I think it is still there. Yeah, because I think that's just an artifact of the plant life from there. So I don't think that's going to go away right as the plant dies.
Mm-hmm.
This is a bad choice all around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think Gordred's instinct is to risk it back across. And
so Gordred starts heading back across. Cassian, what are you doing?
I think Cassian is right behind him, kind of running back across too.
Yeah.
Okay. And Randon, it sounds like Randon, you're committed. You're going to stay on the side you're on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We'll help get you back across once we can plan things.
So there is a help style role. It's like a kind of a newer thing that they're trying out. It's going to be like fully fleshed out for the final game, and I think that's what we're going to do here. Gordred, it sounds like you're probably taking the lead since you're the bigger one, and you said you were taking off first.
Yeah.
So Cassian, would you roll a light die, please? And this is going to be your weak point, but it's also your helping dice. So this die is going to be available for Gordred to use as part of their risk roll.
5.
Okay, that's really good. So you've already got a 5, Gordred. So what could go wrong for this risk roll? The path could crumble beneath you, or you could lose track of it, right, and fall away. What else could go wrong that y'all can think of?
The plant could decide that it doesn't want to just parasite me, and it wants to parasite more hosts.
Yeah.
We may need to lighten our burden to make it across, and we have to ditch like something heavy in our pack.
Oh, I'm totally stealing that for a devil's bargain. That's a great devil's bargain. Yeah, I'm gonna steal that as a devil's bargain. So do you want to think of something else? something that would go wrong?
Yeah. Well, it would be a success technically, but let's say like we just make it across, like jump on the ledge, hang by our fingers, look up, and like a fish person, or there's another problem there.
Yeah, there's something waiting for you on the other side.
Mhm.
Yeah, nice. So yeah, devil's bargains. I'm stealing Joel's idea. I think you've got to throw something. You've got to throw something away to make it. I'm looking at what all equipment you've got. I think it's basically your choice. It could be the staff. It could be the wind chimes or the wooden mask. One of your equipment items. Other devil's bargains you all can think of? Of course, you've also already got a 5, so you know you're going to succeed as well.
It's a question of, do we want to succeed with consequences, complications, or do we want to
Right. More dice does mean more potential for a 6, where there's no
try
complication.
to
Trying to figure out a way to work like the ashes that Cassian had scattered were significant in a way. Either like you see a signet ring of someone from your inquisitorial order, maybe like Cassian sees something from the Lyceum, and basically we realize like they were here, but we'll never know who they were. I just don't know how to phrase that or how to use it.
Mhm.
almost more like a ruin trigger?
Yeah.
I feel like I could imagine if I risk my mind, that could be a nice hook for
Mm-hmm.
what happens if I do trigger ruin.
Mm-hmm.
Or I see it, but that's what's risking my mind. And I see it, and if I'm affected, then I gain ruin.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, yeah, let's go for this. So I'll take the devil's bargain of I drop my wind chimes.
Okay.
I'll take a dark die for risking mind or body.
And so with the help, excuse me, it acts like a weak point, similar to like combat, where if your dark die result matches Cassian's weak point, they'll take ruin as well. So just so you know how that works. So you may want to consider that when you're opting whether or not to take the dark die for the first roll.
Okay. Cassian, so your ruin is high.
And I'm feeling great.
But okay, so if it matches, Cassian gets a ruin no matter what. It's not like doing a dark, when I do a dark die roll and I only get ruins, it's higher than my ruin.
Correct.
Okay, so I can't really risk that. I'm not gonna put you in that spot, Cassie. You can't take another ruin.
Yeah, and you've already got Cassian's die, which is a 5. So you know you've got a success with a complication. You've got another light die from a devil's bargain. we skipped over the first one. Do you have a skill from your background or occupation, training, or piece of equipment or environment that you're taking advantage of?
My initial idea was that I was going to be, because we're saying that the dust, the ashes have shifted because it's collapsing, I was going to be using my staff to guide. I was going to sweep with the staff to see, to just like, okay, I think the path is here. And it gives me like that split second, we're going to rush, but it at least gives me that like split second reaction of, oh shit, the path isn't actually there.
Yeah, the quick check. Yep, that makes sense. Okay, so you
2 light dice in addition to the 5.
Yeah, you're rolling 2 light dice, and you've already got an extra 5.
Fingers crossed. No, a 3 and a 5. So
okay, so you've got the option. I'll tell you the complication, then you've got the option if you want to add the dark die at that point. Then you can reroll. So for complication in this scenario, so yeah, you're losing the wind chimes. I'm tempted to pile on to this separation between, okay, yeah. My complication is that one of you fully makes it across. The second of you ends up clinging to the side of the pit wall below where the entryway is.
Do you have a preference on who makes it across? Because I have ideas for like either way, basically, of what Cashin would do.
I kind of like the image of me being stuck on the side of the wall of the pit again.
Okay.
I think maybe it's like I slip because when I lose the wind chimes. I'm like, shit, and lose my balance and have to like catch myself on the wall right before the door.
And
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, because Cashin has evasion from his background, so I think like even without the staff kind of like guiding his way, you see him just like hop from like rock to rock right as it's about to crumble, even with his like broken leg, and is able to make it across.
And so we will end our session with the visual of Randon standing in the one doorway, looking out at his companions who have tried to rush across. Cassian like jumping from rock to rock, just barely making it across, and then Gordred falling for a second time, even further down into the pit, but catching themselves on a thin ledge, clinging to the wall of this pit to hell. And that is where we will end for tonight, and we'll pick it up again next week. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next week.